YouTube is there, TikTok is there, Instagram is there, Facebook is there. So this is going to be probably one of the greatest teachings that I've done in a long time, because I believe it's going to help you. Now, forgive me, because something tried to take me, y'all. Tried to take me over. And because it didn't take me, hey, welcome YouTube. Welcome to the Higher Talk International. I'm Uncle Dallas. Today we're going to talk about soul ties, something that a lot of people have speculated about, but there is not really anything biblically. Wow, that was terrible sound. There's not anything biblically that says it, but what you're going to find out after we go through this whole thing, because I'm going to let you guys study with me. We're going to study with me. I should have got my second camera, and I can kind of switch to the camera. You guys can see what I'm doing. But we're going to study this thing because I believe this is probably one of the most important lessons that we have to learn. And it's amazing to me that the church has not really gotten into this thing as deeply as they can. If you can, guys, join me on YouTube. If you cannot join me on YouTube, I have all the other things down there. YouTube.com/Higher Talk. And if you can join me on one of those, that platform, that'll make things a whole lot easier. It helps the algorithm. Helps the algorithm as well. But like I said, if you can join me there, you can. That's where I'll be doing all the stuff that I am doing with that. So, like I said, if you can join me there, it would be great. Okay? Now, this soul ties has been, and I took notes this time, and you know, oops, can't see notes of that. I took, why can't you see? Oh, I don't know. I don't have a green screen. How do I? I shouldn't. Soul ties, if you're in a relationship, this is something you need to understand. If you're going to church, this is something you need to understand. If you live a life with anybody, this is something you must understand. You have to understand this. And I will not do it any justice today because I don't have enough time to really dig into this thing. But I'm going to give you guys as much information as I possibly can, because this has been one of the most confusing subjects in the Bible. Whoa, sorry about that. It's been one of the most confusing subjects of the Bible, because people have used it to justify homosexuality. They've used it to do a whole bunch of things. But it really is not really as serious as they think, but it's not as simple either. You know what I mean by that? Now, most of the time when you hear soul ties, you hear it in the form of some type of intimacy that's taking place. You've had sex with somebody, or something has happened along those lines, and now because of the desire, or because something has shifted, you feel like now you have a soul tie to that person. That is equivalent to an addiction. It's equivalent to an addiction. I'm sorry, that's my little preacher, right? Hallelujah. Put it over my shoulder. That's what my pastor should do. I'm put a shoulder pastor. Okay, I'm preaching with my shoulder. Yeah, Jesus on my mind. Okay, so it's equivalent to an addiction. Now, here's what's interesting about it. There's nothing distinctly saying that you are in a soul tie when you have had some type of intimate connection with a person. That's number one. Number two, we have to determine what soul is. Now, we want to say that soul is the same thing as our spirit. It is not. No matter how you slice it, it is not. So when you look at soul ties, you're not talking about something that is connected to the spirit. What you're looking at is something that is connected to the mind. Now, for those of you that are actually on my, let me see, because I have this computer over here, and I have this computer over here. I have this whole situation is here, and let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. Boom, boom, yeah, perfect. Now, for those of you that are on YouTube, you can see this. Those of you that are on the other platforms, you won't be able to see this, but I need you to see something here. Now, this is very important when you start talking about soul ties. Very, very important when you start talking about soul ties. And the reason that it becomes important is because what it will do for you, and this will probably be over my shoulder, so let's see if it'll work. Yeah, right there. Let's move it over a little bit. Let's move it over a little bit. Off my shoulder. Okay, so now, right here, So right here, you see this right here, okay? Right here, you see three different sections. You see the spirit, the mind, and the body. Now, they're both things that, all three things are very, 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 there's a lot more detail to them than simply what you see. You see this, and this. But you see the spirit, the mind, and the body. Now, here's what's interesting. The mind is not just the mind, it's the emotions, the intellect. All the things that are necessary that when it comes down through your spirit, you're able to, let me make this a little better. When it comes down through your spirit, it puts you in a position where you are, let's get this out of here. Okay, good. And we're going to move this to the other side over here, guys. So give me a second here. Yeah. There. It comes to a point, we'll put this over here. There we go. That's kind of out of the way. So now, it's there. Now, good. Your mind is, see, what happens to a lot of us, we get into a situation where we're going, okay, I want something. I want to live some way. I want to be some way. And that becomes a mindset. So your intellect, your thought, how you process things, all these things come from your soul. That is the heart. Now, your spirit, which cannot be contaminated. It can be diluted. It can be a lot of different things, but it cannot be contaminated. So your spirit is pure. Your body has one purpose, to serve agreement. To serve the agreement. Now, what does that mean? This is orange juice, guys. It's not a red cup. What does that mean? If you come to a conclusion in your spirit, and let's do it this way. If you come to a conclusion, in your spirit and in your mind, your body has to obey. This is why I'm telling you, it's very simple to change the course of your life. All you have to do is come to an agreement and allow your body to walk it out. What happens when, now this is all about soul ties. What happens is, when you allow that to happen, your mind puts a blueprint, or your mind puts a blueprint in there, or a stamp that says, okay, we're going to have a relationship. Then the battle becomes what to let go and what not to let go. I'm going to walk in good. How about that? Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Is the echo gone away, Joy? Nikki, is the echo gone away? I'm looking at you on YouTube. Okay. I'm going to decide to do something. I'm going to be in a specific position. I'm going to do a specific thing. So here's what happens. The moment that takes place is you have now tied yourself to that particular thing. You've made a decision that this is what you're going to do. The battles that happen from that point on. Okay. Stacey, are you saying there's still an echo? Is there still an echo? Let's make sure you're off. Okay. Anyway, all right. Okay. So what happens in that process of now you've made a decision to make sure this is the way it's supposed to be. So now you have a soul tie. You've now committed your mind, your soul to this thing. And now there are three basic ones. There are a whole lot of different ones. There are three basic ones. There's trade, trauma, and transition. These are the ways the soul tie is attached to you. Trade, trauma, and transition. Now, trade, like you trade, we trade something. For example, in the sex part of it, it's a trade. I sleep with you, you sleep with me. That takes place. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to be really interesting to a lot of you, but and forgive me, I do not disregard anybody having any type of trauma in their lives. I do not disregard anybody, anything that has happened in your life, because trauma is not just a trauma, there's trauma. Trade means that the moment I decide that you and I are the same person, you and I decide to do whatever we do from that point on. Now, the natural flow of my soul, my natural flow of my mind is changed. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, normally a person walking up to me, hypothetically, like we'll use a young lady, a man walking up to me and slapping me on my behind, that I'll punch him in his face. That's my normal flow. I'll punch him in his face, or I'll do something to him, because that's the normal flow. But the moment that I allow him in, I give him freedom to the mindset, my mindset. That means that normally this man could not walk up and slap me on the behind, hypothetically, but now he can. You got it? Now he can do that. Well, he couldn't do it before, he can do it now. So that means I've allowed him into my mind and I've given him room in my mind. Now my soul is tied to that decision. That's the one where I say that's a transition. My soul is tied to that decision. But it was a trade-off. You were what I thought you were, and because you were what I thought you were, I then decided I would allow you into my heart or into my mind. So that meant that I now have tied myself to you. It's still there. There's nothing I can do about it here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, because right now in the middle of the show, I apologize, guys. If you're getting an echo, I apologize. So now you're in that situation where you're now having that thing takes place. Okay. So, and I do not think anybody, I think everybody's muted, guys. I don't think. Yeah, I think everybody's muted. Yeah, I think everybody's muted. But anyway, so, there's still an echo, Judy? Okay, maybe that's for you, and I don't know. But anyway, so, because this is one of those things I do not need to be, I need to get this out of here. I have to redo it. So, you get the trade. Yeah, now you've traded there. Now, because you've traded that, now you have a soul tie. That means no matter what he does, he's in there. You're tied to the soul. The button on the mic? There is no button on the mic. Anyway, you're tied to the soul. Mute, I guess. I'm going to try to mute some stuff because we're getting to a distraction. How about now? Is that better? Okay. Okay, you're tied to the soul. Now, once you're tied to the soul, now you have a challenge to get him out of your soul or get her out of your soul. Okay, that's trade. You decided. Second is trauma. Now, here's what I was going to say. Did you know? Thank you. Did you know that when a woman when something tragic happens to a woman, and I don't want to say when someone breaks in and does something to her, hypothetically, that becomes trauma. That trauma leaves a mark in your brain. And because of that, a lot of people find themselves in a position where once that trauma has happened to them, they still have attributes of that trauma in their mind. They're tied to that. I was counseling one young lady, and every time she was in that intimate position with her husband, she would smell alcohol. You know that little smell that you have alcohol. That trauma put that thing in her mind. Now, with that type of soul tie, you find yourself in a protective mode. You're protecting yourself from the trauma or the things that happen with the trauma. And it can be as advanced as a rape and as simple as an argument. That type of trauma, it's a tied soul. Why? Because it puts something in your mind that you now have to go around in order to flow freely. So let me do some of this. Soul ties. It's a form of physical addiction. This connection can come from physical pleasure, that comes. The one that they talk about sales, the one for sex. They say this. It's a form of physical addiction that is connected from a pleasurable connection that goes beyond your external. That's what they believe it is. What I wrote is soul ties is anytime something that connects to you alters your normal process or path of your life. Anything that alters the normal path and the process of your life. That thing is in there. It's in your brain. So this could be something as simple as your grandmother told you that you were ugly. So now that's in your mind. You're tied to that perceived truth. So everything you do from a point of, oh, I'm an ugly person, or I do from a point of, I'm a terrible person. Why? Because what happens is you find yourself in a position where you are now trying to alter your life because of that thing in your mind. That is what a soul tie does. So it's not just sex. It could be the fact that you were connected to a lot of light-skinned women, and every time you got with a light-skinned woman, something came up, and you concluded in your soul that I shouldn't deal with light-skinned women. I shouldn't deal with dark-skinned women. It could be a truth about a place. Every African man is this. Every black man is this. Every white man is this. These are things that your mind ties to. And when your mind ties to these things, they become a part of your natural flow. Plus, it alters your normal flow. Like right now, you are looking to be married. Your soul ties, the things that's tied to you, have become your barriers to keep you from going around. So when trauma happens, trauma means you protect yourself from the thing that caused the trauma. That's why when you go into certain situations and someone is shot or hurt, that trauma makes you go, no, I don't want to go in there. And even though that, so trauma can also be assigned trauma. I told you my wife and I, we do scuba diving. And because somebody taught you that sharks can get you, you don't want to go in water. So you now have altered your soul because of a fear that's not even actual fear. It's just the trauma of what you think is going to possibly take place. Now, then there's transition. Now, what transition is we decide to do something. Marriage is a type of tie. It's a type of soul tie. It's a good one because you and I decided we're going to be in this relationship forever. Ever, ever, ever. So my soul is tied to you. Now, let's go this. I told you there are very few passages about this in the Bible, but there are two passages that we talk about. And I was talking to one guy and he said one of them justifies something that's altering. No, it's not. Those of you that know what I'm talking about, this does not justify anything. The first one is in Samuel, the first chapter, first book of Samuel, the 18th verse. And it says this. And it said, it came to pass, and they're talking about Jonathan and David. And it came to pass that he had made an end to the speaking. David is talking. He was talking unto Saul. Yeah, he was talking unto Saul, and Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Now, they were like, oh, maybe that's a homosexual thing. That's not the case. Later on, David did the exact same thing to the kings. Then you go to 1 Chronicles. Anybody want these notes? If you can read through my notes, I'll type all this stuff up and send it to you. You guys can look at it yourself. Then it came to 1 Chronicles, the 12th chapter, and David said went out to meet his army, and answered and said unto him, if thou came peaceably unto me to help me in my art, help me. If thou came, I'm sorry guys, I'm reading fast, trying to read fast, like I got to go somewhere. If you come to me peaceably unto me to help me, my heart is knitted to you. But if you come to betray me to my enemies, see that the Lord will come against you. That is an agreement. He says, if you are coming to be peaceful with me, then from that point on, I will be knitted to you. If you've come to me to betray me, there we go. If you come to betray me, then God will get you. So that's a transition. Your marriage is a transition. Your thing. Now, those are kind of the general things, but let me tell you what really blew my mind. So if a soul tie is something that is in your mind that alters your thought, right now as a child, you have no fear. You were as a child, you have no fear. That's why the Bible says, come to God as a child. So you have no fear, you have no hindrance, you just go do what you want to do. You see something, you go after it. Over the years of your lives, soul ties have tied you to the fear of your life. This happens a lot with the African American community because everything is a fear. We don't boldly go anything. You don't see us on mountains and all these kind of things. Now, we scuba dive, we do all that kind of stuff. And it's not for everybody. But generally speaking, those places that are not as well represented in those situations are not represented because those people tend to have soul ties. The police are going to get you. Sharks are going to get you. You're going to run out of money. You're going to live on the street. Those ties have bombarded your mind. And so you're tied to failure. A lot of you are tied to failure. And the reason you're tied to failure is because everything in your life is tied to a fear. Everything in your life is tied to a detriment. Those things in your life that are tied to positives, you're afraid that somebody's going to con you. You're afraid that somebody's going to lie to you. You're afraid that somebody's going to take your stuff. These are soul ties. You are tied to detriment. You're tied to loss. You're tied. My mama said don't do this. My daddy said don't do this. You've never been cut from the cloth of freedom. This is why a lot of us ran to church, because all of a sudden we said, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. But you get to church and the pastor says you can't walk on the pulpit. Got to wear white gloves for the when you're doing the sacraments. You got rituals. You were placed in these rituals and you were conditioned, and all these things were soul ties. So you're talking like 100 and something thousand things that are in your life that are stopping you from naturally moving. Why don't you write the book? Well, I can't spell. I can't read. Why don't you swim? Well, I hate water. All the things that are happening, these are soul ties that have tied you to failure. And the reason they've tied you to failure is because what you have been doing in your life is living the trauma soul tie. You've been living like it's a trauma. There is no such thing as fear. All fear is the reminding of something that could possibly happen, and it may not happen with you. Everything. Why? Because if you give a community fear, you offer community control. There's a line in Marvel. He said, the world has gotten to the point, a level of fear where they've gotten so afraid they will trade their freedom for protection. This is what's happening to most of us. We trade our freedom for protection. And the reason we do that is because we are tied to destruction. Everything you do is tied to some type of destruction. Every situation is tied to some type of destruction. Right now, I do this all the time. I told a person, I said, everybody that can, send $1,000. Just send $1,000. All the things that come to your mind to stop you from sending $1,000, that's the ties. Those things are tied to you. I don't have the money. Okay, I'll get the money. What are you going to do with the money? Why are you going to do with the money? What are you going to? That's it. If I tell, hey, everybody, let's go to, I'm doing a spiritual retreat here in Charlotte. Come to the spiritual retreat. I don't know everybody, all of those things are being bound to you because God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. But your soul is tied to failure. If I told every person right here, you are not tied to anything, everybody that's on here, if I said to you today, pack your grip, everything, take the money out of your bank account, take the money out of your savings account, get some gas in your car and just drive and start all over, all your ties, your brains will go all over to that. Your brains would just go crazy. What am I going to do about this? I'm talking to the young lady. They're abusing her in church. And I said, you need to stop going to church. She looks at me and says, then what am I going to do? We are so tied to these things. We're tied. We won't come out of church. You won't come out of that. I go through these things all the time because you can be free. There are three things that your freedom is going to dictate. Money. If I start talking money, all of a sudden I want money. And limited, small-minded people, that's what people go, money, because you're small-minded. There are people right now that are controlling you that have so much money they don't think twice about money. Second thing, relationships. You want to have this marriage, this perfect white horse relationship. There are people that have great relationships, and he's not the finest thing on the thing, and they built themselves into a relationship that is a strong relationship. When I got with my wife, I didn't have millions of dollars. We couldn't do what we wanted to do, but together we built something together. We broke the things that tied us to the past. Some of you are so tied to the past that your reality is your past. Your reality is not your present. That's why you protect yourself. Don't talk to me that way. Don't do this to me. Don't do that. They throwing the word narcissism around. Listen, the bottom line is you're tied to a past. Until you see that person in the place of who they are, you're tied to your past. I talk about spirituality. Well, the Bible says this. The Bible says this. You're tied to a word that does not apply to your life, but it's the only thing you can hold on to. So you have a soul tied to this. You have a soul tied to this. It's not doing anything for you. You're not seeing miraculous. All you're able to do is tell everybody that you read it from cover to cover. Last night on my mentoring class, it was a great class. Thank you guys. Everybody that showed up, thank you so much. The young lady said, I read my Bible, but the days that I don't read my Bible, I felt guilty. Soul tie. Because it's not about the Bible, it's about your spirit. It's not about attending church, it's about your spirit. But what I've done is I've created a soul tie. So if you don't come to church, I keep saying it and saying it and saying it, that you feel guilty. You won't even go on vacation because you don't want the pastor to be upset with you, and you don't want to feel like you feel guilty for not coming to church. It's a soul tie, honey. I got to go see my mama. I got to go take care of my children. All these are soul ties. Your children are 30 years old. You don't have children anymore. They're adults. But you are you are physically and mentally tied to these things, and they are soul ties. You must break the ties. If you do not, as much as I'm talking to you, as much as I'm saying to you, it will mean absolutely, positively nothing to you. Why? Because you have justified your soul ties so much that you fight against detriment. You fight to be poor. You fight to be broke. You fight to be connected to the fact that you still think you're fat. You think that you're ugly. You think that you'll never be anything. You fight for that. And so now your battle becomes between what they say and what is really true. You can't see truth because nobody's come behind you and said, you are a genius. You are amazing. Why? Because you don't want to step out because I'm afraid I can't do public speaking, because you tell yourself all the things that you can't do, and they have no validation. Because you have a soul tie. And then in the process of that soul tie, what you do is you compensate for that soul tie. And then after a certain amount of time, you begin to lower the walls that say, fight to be out of this thing. People, hear me. I get haters all the time. And it's the funny thing to me. It's the funniest thing to me because I don't mean anybody any harm. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to make you better. But you know what? I could give away millions of dollars and people will swear that I was doing something against them. But I need you to hear me. I need you to hear me better than you've ever heard me before in your entire life. The things that are tying you to your past, the things that are tying you to your mom, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, your children, your money, your lack thereof, all those things are lies that are told to keep you under control. That's it. To keep you under control. How do you become free? As you meet the walls, go past the walls. As you meet the walls, go past the walls. If relationships are your problem, forgive what he did. Forget what you're not going to be able to forget it. Forgive what he did and keep moving. Now, that does not mean restoration. Forgiveness is not restoration. Forgiveness is release. It's a difference. And I'm working on that. I have a book for that. I'm in a teaching for that. Forgiveness is not restoration. Restoration is you hurt me, you abused me, and I let you back in. That's called restoration. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is you hurt me, you abused me, I let you go, stay where you are, but I begin to live my life like I had never been abused before. That's the difference. So that means you stop abusing yourself and not forgiving yourself and start living the life that you were given to live that life. You have to let the things go. The reason I do the mentoring class free of charge is because I'm going to see how many of you are really going to obey God when he tells you to do something. Why? Because that's a very simple way to do it. You have the Cash App, you have whatever you do, obey him. Same situation. Are you going to come to the classes? Because now it's not a come to the class because you paid for it. It's come to the class because it's your class. See, when you decide to take responsibility for the life that you were given, then all of a sudden you begin to empower yourself to do something greater. Most of us don't take responsibility. Now I'm saying free yourself from the soul ties. Listen, he's 30 years old. He's going to make mistakes. He's your child, but he's not children anymore. You've gone from being a parent to an advisor. He doesn't want to be around you. He slept with everybody on the East Coast. Let it go. What about let it go. Stop tying yourself to the anchor that is drowning you. You have the money to move. Use the money to move. Stop waiting for a rainy day and then tomorrow you have a heart attack and the rainy day money goes to the person that does nothing, that didn't even earn it. Get beyond the financial thing. I know they told you that you were ugly in the small. You're never going to be anything. Let that mess go. They cannot determine your future by your past. Your present moment does not determine your future destination. Your present moment says, this is what I am today. I used to have a whole head full of hair. I don't have the hair now. That does not mean that when I had hair, if you cut your hair, you're going to look ugly. There are men right now that got these little side patches of hair in their head because they're holding on to the fact that they believe that hair makes them sexy or not makes them sexy. Why? Because the community tells you that. You are being tied to mess that is bringing you to a detriment. You are not free to live the life that God gave you. Period. You have a life that is so much better than what you're living right now. You have a life that is so amazing, but what you have to realize is you've been tied to soul. Religion is notorious for this. If you go to church, I don't care. Church is fine. That's what you want. It's the beginning state of learning how to be spiritual. If you go to church, take 2-3 weeks off of church. I'm not going. Then ask yourself, what do you do when you're not actually at church? Is church the only determiner whether you're going to worship God or not? You follow me? Sometimes you and the husband need to get away from the kids. Just get away. Or do you only love him as long as he's around the kids? Ladies, sometimes shut up. Close your mouth. Brother, sometimes kill your ego. All these things are soul ties that are pulling you from the normal path that God has for your spiritual life. You have to let this stuff go. And I'm telling you the same thing. I had to let stuff go. I had to let it go, let go. Well, the man is this and the woman's this. This is why my video went viral. When I told the ladies that God never told you to love the man like the man is supposed to love you, it went to 7 million people. Why? Because we had this soul tie that a man was supposed to be the head of the household, which is not true. That the woman was supposed to be under him like some type of lord, which is not true. And all these things begin to happen. And when they begin to happen, people begin to put little soul ties in these places because they believe that that's what makes things work. I am the head of this move of my flow in my family because my wife and I agreed on it. Not because something said in the Bible, not because something happened in the past. Not, you are in a new life and a better life than you've ever been before in your life. The key to that thing is, are you going to let yourself live? Are you? Forgive them all. Everybody. Let it all go. Forgive your mama for what she said when you were little. Forgive your uncle for what he said when you were little. Forgive the uncle for that terrible thing to you that made you feel like you were nothing because he felt like he needed to molest you and he felt like made you feel nothing. Forgive that. Let that go. Forgive all of that because you were powerful enough to make it to this point in your life. He didn't bring you down. She didn't bring you down. Forgive the girl that embarrassed you. Forgive and let them go. Stop letting those things live in your soul and they have no right to. They live in your soul. I talked to a brother the other day. I said, what you going to do about church? Oh, I'm going to give my two. No. Did God say leave? Yes, leave. Well, it's just right. It's not right. You don't say what's right because somebody told you what was right. You got to give it 2 weeks. You don't have to give a thing. You don't have to do anything but make sure you hear God. You will miss an opportunity that God has for you because you have a soul tied to something that you shouldn't be tied to. Now, I've been in church all my life. It is so hard for me to tell a pastor no, but I do it. It's hard. Why? Because that thing is you have the little soul ties, which are the things that you can say no to, the medium soul ties, which are the things you got to think twice. Then you have the big ones. You got to go somewhere and pray because those things have held you down. You have to understand, trauma is a soul tie. God is not going to strike you down because you told somebody no. Now, being nice, going, hey, I'm going to give you some time to do whatever you need to do. If you don't do it because you don't believe I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do, bruh, that's not on me. I apologize. It's not on me. That's the key to this whole thing. The reason I do this mentoring class is because I got to get them into a spiritual place where they're not hindered by their past. They're not hindered by money. They're not hindered by people. You're not hindered. Your following is directly connected to your spirit, not to anything else. Some of you, your spirit has got you out of these things and walked you out of it. And the problem that happens, you keep running back to it because it's a safe place. A soul tie is a safe place. You cannot let this thing hold you down. You cannot let this thing bring you down. Now, a lot of us have, and this has happened to me in my life as well. A lot of us want to do greater things. Now, let me help you out with this thing. Let me help you out with the power. Here's the power. Here's how you operate in the power. If you want to do something, don't try to do everything at the same time. I did that wrong. I tried to do everything at the same time. I have a mentoring class, I have a couples conference, and we have a spiritual retreat that's going to happen here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it means you come here, you spend a weekend with me and some of my friends, and we build into you how to get past soul ties and all these kind of things. We work that. We're doing that in April. But I had to realize that I had to start concentrating on one thing. What is your detriment? What is your challenge? What's the one thing you need to start working on? It has to be within your ability to work on it. It has to be within your ability to work on it. For example. Okay, good. I'm glad I saw that, Jay. Okay, so good and bad soul ties. Don't let me leave that. So it has to be within your ability to work on. One of the things that you have to realize is the discipline of your life. Soul ties will let you let down the discipline because you don't believe that you can do what's necessary. So for example, you should be writing a book. Somebody told you you're dumb, you don't know how to do anything, you can't spell anything. So your discipline to make that happen is lower because the thing you're tied to in your past makes you feel like it's not going to work anyway. So you punish yourself for the soul tie. You punish yourself for that. And so what you have to realize, what is that thing you can work on right now? Most of you can work on your intercession and prayer life. As I teach, it's not the prayer of religion. It's you connecting to your spiritual power, your spiritual source, God. And that becomes a consistent prayer every day for starting in 7 days. Every morning, every day, you discipline yourself for a time slot and you discipline yourself that. You can work on that. Your finances. Start making sure you pay attention to the money that you spend and then have a destination for your money. Your relationship. Start learning to be able to listen to them as much as you want to be heard from them. All these things, you can work on these things now. And what they do is they move those soul ties out of your mind. They move those soul ties out of your mind so you're free to live. Some of you want to go places. You want to travel. You go, I can't travel. Stop saying what you can't do. There is nothing impossible in your life. Right? There is nothing you can't do. Nothing. You want to travel? There's a way to travel. You want to fly a jet? There's a way to fly a jet. I got a friend of mine. He just went and started taking flying lessons, and they let him solo. He flew a jet. There is nothing that you cannot do. The key that happens is you have all this stuff between you, the real you, and who you want to be. And so between who you are and who you really want to be, there's this, I'm too old, I'm too short, I'm too tall. All these things are spiritual and soul ties that hinder the flow of your spirit. Your spirit is always speaking the best for you. Always. Your spirit is, God is not punishing you because you did something dumb. He's not mad at you. He didn't get you sick so he can get your attention. None of that stuff applies. Whoever told you that lied to you. You're not going to go to hell because you didn't pay your tithes. You're not going. The devourer was rebuked when Christ died. So now the devourer does not have power in your life. So the stuff that's happened in your life is stuff you allowed in your life. Now, I saw a question as I was passing. The soul tie. We're talking about soul ties. The soul ties that are good ties are ties on the last one, which are transition ties. Those are transition ties, which means I decide something, you decide something, and I put that in my mind to be the most important things in my life. I decided when I married Kendra that we're not going anywhere. We're staying married forever. So that's in my mind. My life is altered by that tie. As altered by that tie. The key to that tie is it's a soulish tie, it's a spiritual tie, and it's a physical tie. But it is based on a physical tie. Based on a spiritual tie. So good ties are those that connect you and make you operate the way you're supposed to and free to operate the way you need to. Operate the way you're supposed to and free to operate the way you need to. Does everybody got that? So marriage is a good soul tie. And being committed to raising your children, but you set a line. What's the destination? Too many women, I've heard this 100 times. These are my kids. These are my kids. You're tied. You're tied. Your soul is tied. Well, aren't I supposed to protect your kids? The Bible said raise them in the way that they should go, and then when they're old, they won't depart from it. You're raising children to let them go. Every woman that said these are my kids, and there's a dad. If you are saying that these are my kids, you're gonna get mad at me. You'll be all right. If you're saying that these are your kids, then you are responsible for those kids. Stop putting them on child support. Stop doing all those things because you said you want these kids are yours. If he has a dad and you don't allow him to see those children, discipline those children, or be a part of his life, you have no rights to ask for anything from him because you have made that a soul tie in your life. When your children are 40, 50 years old and you're still talking about, you got to respect my children, the person that comes into your life doesn't even have to look at your children. They're not children anymore. They are adults. And if you are still stuck in child mentality, you have a soul tie. Did you hear me? You follow me? Bruh, if you have slept with a woman and then all of a sudden you decided that you don't want to be bothered with her anymore. And so what you're doing is you're gassing her or whatever these little things are. That's on you. By the Spirit, once you decided to sleep with her, you put yourself in a position where you were responsible for her. Did you know that biblically? Because they didn't have marriage licenses then. So you bouncing from person to person to person, what you're doing is saying spiritually, I want to be responsible for every person that I give myself to. And now she's crazy because you've now placed a soul tie in her life. And so now you're going, why did you do that? If your intentions are not clear, even if you want to say, listen, this is all about sex, baby. All I want is a piece of you. Because as a man, you set a path for their lives. I don't care what you think. I don't care what society says. So now you've given her a soul tie and you're mad at her because you have a soul tie and you didn't want. Well, I didn't want a baby. Then you shouldn't have done what it takes to get a baby. Take your time. Work that out. Why? There are men here that have never slept with anybody they didn't want to sleep with. Now, not saying things work out and things don't work out. She turns out to be crazy. Got it. She did things to trick you. Got it. All those things. Forgive that stuff. Don't let it tie you down. That's what happens to us. We let stuff tie us down. You have to realize, take responsibility for your side of it. If you don't take responsibility for your side of it, don't get mad when society, which has placed things in order, placed things in place to put you in a position where you're tied to it. I'm looking for my water. I didn't bring it, did I? Okay, that's too late. Does that make sense? So, because I'm about to tie this thing down and get out of here. So here's the key. Here's the key. Now I can go a little deeper in this. I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to mess up the whole flow of what we're doing. So here's where you find here's where the challenge becomes. The challenge becomes this. There are things that you're tied to that have changed the process. You have to uproot those things. You've got to uproot them. And how do you uproot them? The only way to uproot them is to challenge their position in your life. The only way to uproot them is to challenge their position in your life. Once you challenge your position in their and challenge their position in your life, then you have to beat the position. Your grandmother told you that you weren't pretty. Your grandmother told you weren't pretty. Do what it takes for you to feel pretty, but don't allow yourself to overdo it because you're trying to cover what your grandmother said. I have not met every person has a level of beauty that's their life, and it's how they live. It's what they live and where they live. Don't worry about that. Move in the place that you are comfortable. Because ladies, let me tell you the most beautiful thing to a man, a woman that's confident in who she is, not arrogant. Because see, some of y'all think y'all arrogant. I mean, you think your arrogance is confidence. It's the difference in the girl coming to a girl and saying something to her like, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. You look pretty. Thank you. I appreciate you. That's confidence. How you doing? I'm fine. How are you? You pretty today. You know I'm pretty. That's arrogance. Nobody wants that mess. You want all this. Nobody wants all that mess. That's what you have to understand is it's not about all the time about how beautiful you are. Be okay in your skin. I'm just helping those that feel like in their past. Be okay in your skin. If you feel like you're not healthy in your skin, then become healthy. Don't be, that's another soul tie. We're tied to, I'm just going to eat. I can't do this. You are tied to all the things you can't do. Break that mess off of you. Break that mess off of you. Now, that's women. Bruh, don't be overconfident in something you can't do. Because we are bad about that. Yeah, girl, I would do this, I'll do this, and we can't come close to it. Be you. Oh my God. If you cannot do it, you just can't do it. You have strengths in other areas, or get yourself to the point that you can be strong in those areas. Don't promise a woman something that you're not going to offer her. That's that old mess. I'm a player. You're not a player. You're 80 years old and you're sagging your pants. Get over it. Now, let me get out of that. All right? All right? That's it. Now, for everybody that's on these two things, I'm about to sign off on this one right here. Listen, YouTube, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. We're going for 1,000 followers, 1,000 subscribers. Share this video. Look at it over and over again. Help yourself get out of those places. I will help you as much as I possibly can. This is just a class. A class that I do. If you're not a part of the mentoring class, you can simply put a link down here and I can give you the link so you can become a part of the mentoring class. We meet every Tuesday at 8 o'clock on Zoom, and you can learn a lot of things there. I appreciate you. I love you guys. You are wonderful. And we will talk on Monday, Wednesday. We'll talk on Friday.